All right, Joe, wanted to give you a video update on Belle, show you what we're working on right now, let you get a good look at her, and talk a little bit about what we're doing, and perhaps even more important than what I'm doing is how I'm doing it. So um, I told you we would work on force fetch with Belle. Belle is definitely a super natural dog, meaning that she's a very natural retriever. Like she delivers to hand, pretty much on her own. Sit, at least well enough to get her through hunt tests. Um, so she's good. And so what we're doing here is we're really just tweaking that, and we're going to do this through the force fetch process. So wanted to show you how I do it, so that if you run into any bumps down the road, you can see kind of the technique that I used, and then I can show you pretty easily how to correct it. Um, I really don't think this is going to take much, because Belle likes to retrieve. She likes having something in her mouth. It's simply this is just really the way I teach it is nothing more than an obedience command for her mouth. So that kind of usually rocks the dog's world at the beginning, but once they understand it, they're like, okay, fine, no big deal. So I want to show you what I'm doing. So first off, what we do is we always start by doing this drill in the same location. Dogs, as you know, are very sensitive to their area, so we always do our formal obedience force fetch work. Usually I do it here in the shop, and I do that because of several reasons. One, it's a lot more controlled. Two, it's indoors, so it's not as hot or as cold. Don't have to worry about rain or whatever, and I have decent lighting, so I can video this. Um, so I wanted to show you how I do it, and you'll see. I'll send you videos for the next couple weeks over this, and we can work on this, even while we go right up to the test, um, and we get our title week after next, or I guess, well, in a week and a half or whatever. Anyway, the point is, I wanted to give you a clear view of what we're doing. It's also good. This actually isn't a bad idea to work on now anyway, because Belle just finished coming out of her heat cycle. So I feel comfortable um, being demanding of her. Usually, when a dog is in heat, I don't make them do anything, but if they want to work, I work with them. But if they're just like totally blowing me off and being crazy, I don't want to create a problem, if that makes sense. But Belle, I mean, we still were doing marks the whole way through her heat cycle, and she handled it just fine. So I think she's a nice retriever. So anyway, wanted to show you this here indoors. It's also good because this will help really polish up her obedience. And this is actually just a good drill to do anytime. But as you can see, Belle sits here patiently. She understands sit. She knows that obviously. She knows how to be patient. I also think that already I have seen a maturity level increase. Generally, after dogs go through their first heat cycle, we see them really grow up, and so it helps. It really does. They're not quite so puppyish. I mean, they're always going to be have some puppy in there, but a little more mature. So anyway, what I do is I start off by doing stuff that she already knows. I'm going to do the three commands that I primarily teach the dog, which is sit, hear, and heel. We did this way back last year, doing on leash obedience when she was, 7, 8 months old or whatever. Um, and she's good at it. She knows this stuff. So obviously we've been sitting here at heel. So I'm just going to do a quick little drill, a little rep. I'm not going to repeat this. Obviously, I've repeated a bunch for the sake of repetition, but I'm not going to repeat it on video. Imagine just repeating it a bunch. Okay, good, good. I like to get Belle's attention. She looks at me, which I like that. She focuses on me. Good girl. Belle, heel. And of course, we do this. We want the lead loose, which she does nicely. She's focusing on me. And a lot of that, it helps because we're here in the shop where there's not really, any grass to smell and sniff and be distracted. She understands, she needs to pay attention to me. It helps narrow her focus. So now, here, heel. sit. Good. That little move that I do right there with here, heel, sit, doing all three together is a critical component of how I teach force fetch. Belle, here, heel, sit. Good girl. Good. Now, obviously, Belle knows all that stuff. Sit. That's review. And I do want to point out that when we are doing those drills, we always continue to work on that obedience. No dog is ever done with obedience. Like we always need to encourage good, obedience. Do it with an on lead where you know they're going to be sharp. You know they're going to be good. It just helps the dog get in the right frame of mind. There's a fly on the camera. Oh, fly. Okay, so now the next part is how do we add the force fetch? So all we're going to do is right here at the heel command, all I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a new idea. The new idea is that I am going to control her mouth. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I am going to control her mouth with my hand. I'm going to stick my hand in her mouth, and I'm going to leave my hand in her mouth until she quits resisting me. Now, the first couple reps we did with Belle, when I did this, she is kind of like a fish on a hook. I mean, just, flailing. Very quickly, the dogs learn, hey, the hand's not coming out until you calm down. And so very quickly they figure it out. But what I'm trying to do is I actually teach the release command or the drop command. I use the word give. I teach that command first. And in order for them to understand that they need to drop something, they got to have something in their mouth first. So that's the way that I teach it. So I'm just going to come right down to her. I'm going to kneel down right beside her. I'm going to take my left hand and hold her collar. And she's licking her lips here, which is submission. That's good. Yes, you know what's coming. I'm going to take my right hand. I'm just going to slide it right in her mouth. Give. And Belle has had only a couple of reps of this. And very quickly, she's like, oh, okay, gotcha. So not a big deal for her. So step one, hold my hand in your mouth. We'll let her resist a little bit here. Give. Good girl. Good. And she's licking her lips in submission, saying, you're the boss. You're the boss. Okay. So obviously, step one, we need her to hold my hand. Step two, we're going to carry the hand from one spot to another. So now I'm going to put my hand in her mouth. Heel. Sit. Give. And now we're adding those commands, and we're doing it in small, tiny, incremental steps. So we want the dog to do this in little bitty baby steps. Sit. And Belle is going through this very quickly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the force fetch stick. Now I want to talk about this real quick. This force fetch stick is an unusual stick because it has a smaller center and larger outsides. The point being that if it's sitting on flat ground, that the dog can grab it easily, and they'll tend to grab in the middle. That's the point. Now, the dogs never see this before this test, and they never see it afterwards because there may be some resentment about this process. And if they have some resentment, I want it to be at this one particular stick and no others, this unique stick. So what I'm going to do now, and this is actually the first time she's done this, we'll see how she handles it. Instead of using my hand, I'm going to use the force fetch stick. We'll let her smell it here. Let her check it out. Good. And I'm going to put the stick in her mouth, and I'm going to make her keep it in there until she quits resisting me. It's pretty give. And that was a pretty mild resistance. She was like, okay, it's going to stay in my mouth. Huh? Yeah. She's always happy. It's like she's always smiling. Yes, always smiling. Okay, let's do that again. Okay. And she's already trying to grab it, which is great. It'll make life easy. We just got to teach her how I want her to grab it. Right in the middle. Right in the middle. Good. Good. Give. Good girl. Good. Okay. Now, let's carry it. Okay. Heel. Sit. Give. Good dog. And for the first couple times that I do this, I'm actually holding her mouth, sit around it so that she cannot drop it. I'm not giving her the opportunity to fail because we're teaching. Heel, sit, give, teaching that I want her to hold it. So we'll move on from here. The next couple steps we'll do is we'll start to After we've done a little more of this hold, this little procedure, then we'll start to introduce the actual force and force fetch. But Belle is going to do great with this. I mean, we've done very little, only a couple sessions since I talked to you last on this. She picks it up very quickly. She's a nice dog, man. Really nice dog. I really like Belle. So, trucking right along.